Shawn Wells, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on and giving me your time today. I really, really appreciate it. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Well, thank you for giving me your time. I'm excited to talk to you. I already have heard amazing things about you from dear friends, and I'm excited for this conversation. I'm excited that you're excited. Like projections and we're like twin flames dancing around with projections and like
Projecting
you're
across the
awesome,
other side
I'm
of the world.
awesome, you're intelligent, I'm intelligent. Let's do it.
Love it. All right. Well, to start with, I've got to get a bit of context for our audience. For you, you have a very passionate story about health and your own as well, coming out of and overcoming your own health issues. So let's start there and give me a little bit of an idea of what brought you to this point.
Yeah, really, I have a history of suicidal thoughts, depression, disordered eating, like with both morbid obesity, anorexia, and even orthorexia. There was a point where I had horrible autoimmune issue with Epstein-Barr virus, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, Hashimoto's. I couldn't get out of bed for 6 months in pain and inflamed.
Wow.
My anorexia at one point got so bad, like I went from 300 pounds to 150 pounds. And then I was weighing myself every time I peed and, and hoping that I was going to be less weight. And I hated my body. I hated myself. Most of my life, I've been driven for achievement. Even though I was doing all these biohacks and supplementation, it was all because of I was never enough. Like it was the competitive side of biohacking. It was the self-loathing. It was drive. It was 80 hours a week of work. And it was me figuring out ways I could survive and push myself. And then despite all the illness and disease and sickness. And so I got really good at all the things, at keto, at biohacking, at supplements, at fasting and paleo and all of these things, but they were all ways for me to survive what I was doing to myself. And then eventually I got a brain tumor and it never stopped. I've had 2 discs replaced in my neck. I've had surgeries on my hips and knees and different things. And it was all because I was never sleeping. I was always under stress. I was hating myself and just driving so hard. Like I needed more letters after my name. I needed, more attention and achievement, and to be on this TV show or this documentary and be in this mastermind, to be at the next level. The next level was always there's another level. And I never felt like I was there where I needed to be because I thought at some point there'd be enough achievement that I would love myself and that people would love me. But that never happened. And it was only until a year and a half ago when I was actually starting to write this book and that I found like myself like really taking a step back and reevaluating as I was writing it. And then COVID happened and I was supposed to be traveling 300 days last year, like in China and Brazil and going all over the world to speak and do all the things. And again, working all these crazy scheduled hours. It wasn't until all that all that stopping that I really reevaluated even deeper. And then I took time out to do plant medicine, to work with therapists, to get mentors around me, to get in the right types of masterminds, to do deep self-care and work, like working on things like affirmations and gratitude and breath work and doing more relaxing types of training versus just heavy weightlifting and competitive volleyball, which I love. But, I was doing things like yoga and walking more and like really reevaluating. And then that's when I found self-love. And it was really in my first plant medicine journey that happened, that I walked into this space, like not knowing any of the 20 people there. And I ended up in a cuddle puddle on the floor where you're just like
when you have fun.
hugging and you're hugging and kind of caressing other people. It's very not like, for people that haven't been in a plant medicine space, it's like when you're in that space, it's very non-sexual. That's like not even like a thought in your head. It's very like childlike.
Yeah.
but you're in a very loving space. The ego construct has been broken. The hypervigilance is broken. The ultrasympathetic nervous system state is taken down, so that you're in a much more relaxed, creative, loving space. And it was in that space that I realized that I could be loved and I could give love, and it was easy as being, not doing. It was no longer like, I always thought like sexy, happy, successful was an achievement. When I get to this weight, when I get this car, when I get this house, when I get this job, when I make this much money, then I'll be happy, successful, sexy, whatever.
Yeah.
But all those are states of being. I didn't realize that until that point, that I could just be those things right now. And I could, if I felt that way about myself, going back to projection, if I treat myself that well, that's how people treat me in return.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I set the bar for how people treat me. And then I was able to build that solid foundation on which the biohacks actually could optimize my body, instead of me just trying to survive, be heads down and grind. Or grinding is like ultra sympathetic nervous system state. Like that's all I was in, sympathetic or ultra sympathetic. I had no parasympathetic relaxation, rest and digest. Like there was none of that. It was just pushing, pushing, pushing. And I'm lucky I survived. Like with all the stuff I've been through and how hard I pushed myself.
Yeah.
If honestly, I think if COVID didn't happen, I think I could be dead. Like to be honest. So like and I rewrote this book probably 3 times because of all the shifts that were happening with me mentally. All the science was there, all the biohacks were there,
Yeah.
but like this through line of my stories and my heart and like this growth mindset and your tribe and all this stuff that I put in,
Yeah.
shifted quite a bit, like as I wrote the book. And then I even recorded the book 6 months ago, which I don't know if you know how hard it is to record a book.
I can
It's
imagine.
exhausting. It's like 30 hours of like really exhausting work.
Whoa.
But I ended up re-recording it about a month and a half ago because I kept making more and more changes, and it went from like, to me, like a B+ to like an A+ now. Like I'm super excited about the book. It's exactly what I want in the world, and I'm proud of myself, and I love myself now, and I love being here.
Wow. That, Shawn, is incredible. And I think you're speaking to so many people out there, you know, to the extreme that it was for you, maybe not, but I think so many people have these feelings about themselves, the lack of worth. I'm dealing it every day with my clients in clinic, and I dealt with it also myself. And for me too, it was plant medicine that actually helped me out so much back in many years ago, actually. And children too. Having children, I think, also changed me personally.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But what I love is that you're here telling your story. You're here sharing your knowledge and passion with the world. And really, as hard as it is to say, that a lot of people who have to experience the worst then give the most and have so much to offer other people and teach other people and make this world the most amazing place to be in. So thank you for going through the hard yards and bringing out this amazing book, and also just being who you are and surviving COVID. So, you know, COVID was probably a good thing for a lot of people, I think, from what I've also gone through and seen from other people. So thank you for sharing your story. It means a lot. Yeah.
That means a lot for you to say that. And I probably have put $150,000 of my money and time and energy and diagrams and getting the promotion and all the things around this. So I can just literally, I'm charging 99 cents for the ebook. And then my hardcover, it cost me $39.80 and I'm charging $39.99.
Whoa.
It's like full color. The whole book is like literally full color front to back.
Wow.
Like every page is like color stuff, and there's tons of diagrams, and there's these formulators corners that have all the doses and brands and supplements, and then there's resource hacks that have all the devices and apps and techniques. There's over 100 scientific citations, 400 pages, and for the book, like, I mean, 99 cents for an ebook that's full color and all that stuff for 400 pages. Then you also get a hidden chapter on natural movement, like ancestral movement.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also a fasting for energy guide that's about 25 pages on how to do different types of fasts, how it's different for women, how
Yeah.
to execute on that, all the science in there. So it's a
Exercise.
pretty amazing value. And I just want it in people's hands because I honestly believe that, you know, I could be dead right now. And then there's points of my life where I was extremely depressed, where I was suicidal. And
Mm.
then there's points in my life when I was in deep health crisis. And so like I've been through it,
Mm.
and I just want this in people's hands, and I just want to make an impact. And I don't even want money to be the issue that is holding that back. I just want this to change lives as much as possible.
Yeah. Well, your work's already making an impact, Shawn.
Oh, thank you.
From what I've seen anyway, and for what you've put out, and for what just how you're living. And I think it's what we give out, our energy, and how we actually want to make those changes. We're already making that impact before we even know it. So I think that's also a good reminder to remember that you're, even with the book in hand, I think the information is absolutely amazing, but you being you're making that impact already. So let's dive into some information then, shall we? You you are a ingrediologist, you're a formulator, you're an amazing man. We're a clinician, or I would say you're still advising a lot of people. You have an amazing company, formulating and manufacturing. You're helping and advising so many people across the world. I don't know how you fit it all in. So on a daily basis, what can you not live without? What is like your policy that you have to have in your life every day? Anything. It could be a hack, it could be meditation, it could be anything that you have in your life every day.
Probably this.
Yeah.
Like this is like I enjoy. Oh, I'm just taking a second to actually feel that. Like
Yeah.
really, like I have a lot of gratitude for living my purpose, living my why.
Yeah.
You know, I still do a lot, but and as you're pointing out, I work a lot of hours still, but it feels very different when you're living your purpose. Like when you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
So true.
You know, it's like I feel very passionate about helping others. I feel very passionate that when I do help others, I'm helping myself. As I walk through these conversations and I get deeper friendships with amazing people like you, other people are listening to this. Hopefully it's having an impact on them.
Yeah.
And as I work through educating, as I work through speaking about my my issues that I've had, like I get more clarity, I get more resolve. I feel like I know myself better. I'm more passionate about who I am, more clear on my purpose. So like these conversations are probably the most important thing to me. And I get into that in the book, that like your tribe is the final chapter. It really goes kind of in order of like, it starts with experiments, like it gets into like biohacking, bioindividuality, doing blood work, epigenetics, like the most hardcore stuff. Then it gets into nutrition, where I go into keto, paleo, vegan, carnivore, all that stuff, Mediterranean. Then exercise with like high intensity interval training. And I even have like other hacks like blood flow restriction and intraset stretching and some really cool exercise techniques that get you faster results in much shorter time.
Yeah.
Then into routines where circadian rhythm and your sleep and wake cycle, what it's like to have a really dialed morning routine and how that can be done in very little time. Just 5 or 10 minutes can change your day. And then proper sleep hygiene, a sleep fortress, what that means. And then getting into growth, like it starts to get maybe more woo or loving, like, as it gets towards the back. But I think it all comes together like that. Like it's about having a stoic or resilient mindset, a reframer's mindset, an experimenter's mindset, which is so critical. Like most successful people, like Tim Ferriss found, like all his tools at Titans people had two things in common: a dialed morning routine, which I just talked about, and having that reframer's, experimenter's mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the last chapter is your tribe. And that, I think, is the most essential piece, is like, is how you show up in the world, you having purpose, you knowing your why, you having that deep connection. The Harvard study that's over 80 years old now found the number one factor in longevity. It's not like enemas and peptides and exosomes and all these things, like hardcore stuff like Dave Asprey and Ben Greenfield are talking about. It's literally connection. If you go to these blue zones with supercentenarians, and that's what they found, like with the Harvard study, by the way, that was like the number one determinant of longevity was quality of relationships. And these blue zones with supercentenarians, it's the same thing. It's that they have community, that they have connection. Everyone's looking at like the red wine and the Mediterranean food and these things like that. And that stuff does have an impact, but they're having that while they're connecting with each other over several hours, not being distracted. And they have a psychosomatic anchor where that food that they're eating is being eaten while they're relaxing and enjoying company. So food then becomes a trigger or an anchor for the body to relax. And in America, I don't know exactly how it is in Australia, but like we're always in a state of busyness, and we're, eating while we're in the car, we're, eating out of a vending machine from a convenience store, the gas station, whatever, all these things that like we're, even if it's healthy food, a lot of the time we might be anchoring or triggering sympathetic nervous system where we have an inflammatory or fight or flight response to food. And no matter how healthy it is. So that's a big factor, is the setting in which they're having the food.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the current state of phones and social media and comparisons, we are, I think, in a constant state of that sympathetic dominance, or activation, as I call it, where people just can't relax. They just can't switch off. They're always a need, a want, a to-do list, or something to be ticking or comparing.
Yeah, I mean, we're always using, this phone, and we're distracted by it. People say that they're way too busy and they don't have time to exercise. They don't have time to learn a new instrument. They don't have time to do this or that. But if I was to pick up your phone right now and I was to look at how much time you spent on Amazon, on Netflix, on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook, just doing things on your phone using apps, I'm curious about what that would add up to be, because that's quite a bit, I'm sure. And so you have the time. You're just spending a lot of time in a distracted, dopamine dominant state where you're this reward system of scrolling, of liking, of Netflix, for example. Like people might spend more time looking at the trailers, trying to decide what to watch, and like just keep adding things to their queue but not watching anything. That's like the state that we're staying in, just a constant state of distraction and accomplishing very little. Like Cal Newport talks about deep work, and Tim Ferriss talks about this as well, that it's important to have maybe 2 hours where you have really deep work, focused work, where you're not distracted, and knock out a big task. Because we're not good multitaskers. It's called task switching that we end up doing. We're focused on one, then focused on the other, and it takes 2 to 5 minutes to actually do a proper switch and refocus and recalibrate.
Absolutely.
So it's not a healthy practice to always stay in this distracted state. And then you're not enjoying the life that's out there. You're not in a mindful present state. And that's what I'm talking about with these blue zones. Like they're literally, their phones are away. I've spent time in Sardinia 3 different times. I've been there, which is one of the blue zones. And they're not distracted. They are fully present. And when they take walks, they're fully present. It's not about being distracted. And that's really like, it's almost a disease. Almost a disease right now. It's a rampant, that's the pandemic, is our distraction. And then we're buying into the fear and the isolation and the clickbait. I mean, there's the titles of these articles, or the things on social media, or these the things that are on the news. They're meant to trigger us. They're meant to put us into boxes. Anyone that tells you like you're in a box of Republican or Democrat, conservative or liberal, of Black Lives Matter, anti-Black Lives Matter, mask or no mask, vaccine, no vaccine, all these things, like they're trying racist, not racist, like you're supposed to be put in a box so that you're fearful, you're divided, you're angry. And that's the way that you buy into all this content. Is it triggers you, and you keep clicking the content, you keep watching the news, you stay in this downward spiral. That's again dopamine dominance, and it's not healthy.
No,
it's not healthy at all. And so we're not being present, we're not connecting in the way that we should. We have 99.9% in common. We're all trying to be healthy, happy, sexy, loving, enjoy life. That's what we're all trying to do.
Absolutely.
And we all have so much in common, and yet like we're getting divided out over this minutia, and we're told like these things like make this person so different from us. It's lies.
Yeah, it's that divide trying to keep us apart, but it's really, we should see through that, and a lot of us don't. Yeah, or we get caught, and I think that breaking that cycle is one of the hardest things. But once you've got there and that outside view of what's going on, that switching back, and oh wow, and that's what plant medicine gives, right? It sort of takes you out, and then you're looking almost at yourself or the world that you're in, and it just gives you this completely different perspective. Completely different. Yeah. Wow, we've gone deep already, and I love it. Let's zoom out a little bit, because I want to get into the nerdy stuff with you.
Sure.
Biochemistry, nutritional biochemistry, you are amazing at, and I'm a lecturer, I'm doing my master's, all those sorts of things, but I still don't have the knowledge that you have, or remembering of all that knowledge up in your head there. So let's run a few things through a few things that got you into formulating in specifically. How did you get into that? It's obviously a very unique way of creating ingredients, and so just sort of talk me through that, and then we'll break out that and then go through those different bits.
Yeah. It was my sophomore year of college. Again, I was obese. I was kind of looked down upon. I never got the girl. I was always laughed at and bullied. And I finally started working out, and using protein and creatine, and eating high protein meals, and reading all the bodybuilding magazines. And some of it's true, some of it's not true, but I was into all this stuff, and I was getting really passionate about it, and seeing changes in my body, going up a set of dumbbells each time I was going to the gym. And all of that felt really good. And people were even coming up to me and asking me, what's going on? What are you doing? Like, I felt like finally, like I was a little bit of a guru here. And that all felt so good to finally get attention and be somewhat proud of myself. And I ended up going to the doctor in between my sophomore and junior year of my undergrad at business school. And I was telling him all about this stuff, and I thought he was going to laugh at me and tell me it's stupid, because most doctors, especially at that time, didn't really care for supplements.
Yeah.
And he ended up drawing out this lifeline for me between 20 and 80, and said, why not be happy between here and here? And I was like, wow, did he just give me permission to like go pursue something that I didn't even know I wanted to go pursue until this moment that he just gave me permission?
Wow.
It was crazy for me. Like, it literally changed. Like, and at that time there were no influencers, there were no brands, there were no like people like, I'm going to be this entrepreneur and self-brand and all that stuff. Like, I mean, at that time, like I thought like, someone gets wealthy by working for a company. Like, I wanted to work at Anderson or Price Waterhouse, or like some of these consulting companies. And so when he told me this, like, I was like, wait, this thing I'm super passionate about, I could do that as a job. And I didn't even know if it was a thing. Like, I don't know, like at that point, I didn't know whether there are formulators that like get paid to do that. But I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And so I finished up my business degree at Babson, ended up taking about 2 years worth of prereqs of pure sciences to get into UNC Chapel Hill, which was my dream school. Got my master's in nutrition, biochemistry, exercise science, got my RD, registered dietitian, and I worked clinically. But the whole time I was like online on message boards, like working for companies, writing like the marketing write-ups, answering questions. from people that were using the products. I was doing all this just for free. Like I was getting sent product. Like that's like, I was doing all this work, like on the, like when I was working as a dietitian full time, like 40, 50 hours a week, I was doing about 20, 30 hours a week of just on message boards and all that stuff, not getting paid. Then I'd spend all my vacation time and holidays, like literally at conferences, at expos, like trying to help out at their booths. Like this was my dream. I was like full on going at it. And eventually I did get on with a supplement company called Dymatize, where I was a full-time formulator and head of R&D and quality control. And I've formulated 500 products since, patented 10 ingredients. And I'm known as the world's greatest formulator, and it all came true. And it's really like thanks to that doctor. Like honestly, if that guy never talked to me, I wouldn't be sitting here. Like that was a life changer. And there's definitely power in your words when you talk to people. You can change someone's life path dramatically, and he changed mine. And it wasn't his job to do so. Like he was just a doctor, quote unquote. But he felt like it was his business to help me, to give me advice, to give me permission to pursue my dream. And so I'm so thankful for that.
That's incredible. The words are so powerful. It's and I get shown that very regularly. You know, one thing that I would say to someone, or someone said to me, and they don't even remember it themselves, and then they take that one thing away. You know, it's very important that we're very conscious and very conscious with our own words. I totally agree with you, and that's incredible for a life-changing event like that for you. Amazing. So from that formulation, now, you know, I'm going to start off because I do have a lot of practice that listening here, and students who are coming up learning the trade, as I would say. When we're looking for things to help clients or patients, it's a very vast world out there of ingredients, of supplements. There is so much. And to try and sift through that, I would say, is one of the hardest parts of being a clinician, is to try and sift through to reduce toxicity, but also create, good protocols for clients, as well as have effective nutrients and well-absorbed nutrients or ingredients. So what's your, I'm going to swear, but what's your no bullshit policy when you're looking at formulations? What would be sort of your, what would you say to others and clinicians what to look for? Because obviously we've all got our own ways, but you're the expert, the world's greatest formulator. So please tell me your secrets.
I love that. Well, I will give you no bullshit then. I would say my first rule right out of the gate is no proprietary blends.
Okay.
I'm super against them. It's very deceptive. It's a practice. They'll say it's because of we have trade secrets and whatever. It's a lie. 99.9% of the time it's a lie. It's a way to, there's a practice called fairy dusting, where let's say like the proprietary blend is 700 milligrams of the muscle and strength blend.
Yeah.
And then the first ingredient of the 17 ingredients in there is creatine, which is $4 a kilo. Great ingredient, super cheap. So, and let's say that could be 699 of the 700 milligrams in that blend. Then the other 16 ingredients that are listed after creatine in order of descending mass could be that 1 milligram. Things that are supposed to maybe be 500 milligrams, 1 gram at the efficacious dose.
Yeah.
This is just a garbage practice. It's disreputable. So I like full transparency labeling, where each ingredient is listed. And if it's a botanical, you list genus, species, active compound that it's standardized for. You list the plant part, like if it's ginseng, it's supposed to be the root, because another unscrupulous practice would be just to list ginseng. And in that case, they could be putting in the whole plant, which has very little efficacy. So there's a lot of games that are played. So you have to be cognizant of that. And if you need a source to look up to see if something's at the right standardization, at the right dose, and the right frequency, you can go to examine.com. That's a really good website. A friend of mine has that. It's kind of like the Wikipedia of ingredients. And it's just amazing for research that you can validate stuff against.
Yeah.
I think my next rule would be ridiculous claims. So in research, you can have, let's say, one group, let's say the experimental group has 0.3% change, basically no change. But the placebo group has 0.1% change. And then they're going to say, it's 300% better. It's like, well, that's very, that's just like, that's just shady. Yeah, it's just shady. So like, anytime, and by the way, that's just on an ingredient. You don't know whether that's for the formula. You don't know how those ingredients affect each other. So unless there's research on the full formula, on the finished product, then you don't really know all of what it does. Some of those ingredients might be synergistic, some might be counterproductive. You don't know. So you can make claims as long as you're clear to say, for this ingredient that's in the formula, it's been shown that blank, but it should be more realistic claims that aren't like shady, like that kind of 880% more, blah, blah, blah. Like that's just ridiculous and a red flag.
Yeah.
The next thing I look for is that you can know that you can call these companies and get their lot testing. That product that you have in your hand, you can tell them the lot and then ask them what the lot testing was. You should be able to get that information from them. They should have proper quality control, have the testing results, talk to you about what those testing results are. If they're shady about it, if they're saying like, I don't know, we'll get back to you in 5 days or whatever, that's a clear sign that they don't have a quality control team. They don't have documentation, and you shouldn't be supporting those companies. Because if you talk to a company like Thorne or Metagenics or Zymogen or Doctor's Best or Now or some of these like really good companies, Life Extension, they're all going to have those things. So I like supporting like these companies that have been around 10, 20 years, that have a solid reputation, that work with clinicians, that have the full transparency, that fund research, that don't make ridiculous claims. But also, I think another piece is, as a formulator, I look at mechanism of action and I want complementary, synergistic mechanisms of action. I don't have 5 ingredients in there that all do the same thing just so someone can see, oh, it's got that ingredient. I've heard of that one. No, there's a purpose for each ingredient, and they complement each other and work on different mechanisms of action. That's where like a true formulator can come in and really create a masterful formula, my work of art, if you will.
Exactly. It's an art form for sure. Yeah. And something to be proud of once you've done that. Yeah. Amazing. All right. Well, thank you. That's good. It's I've in Australia, we have the Thorne, we have Metagenics and Bioceuticals and all of that lovely stuff. So big companies. And then we have, being a naturopath here, I deal with a lot with herbal medicine and a lot of compounding type ingredients. So I compound in my dispensary because I find that a lot of the fillers, a lot of the other nasty things that come along with it, like maltodextrins that are in a lot of products that I just don't want for a lot of my really sensitive clients. So
that's a great point.
Yeah, and it's something that I deal with on a daily basis, constantly reading. It's like one of the most, not time wasters, but it's very important. But I find that that's really frustrating that I can't trust even a good reputable company in some cases that they'll put junk in there. And I'm like, that's not right. You shouldn't be doing that.
Well, what's even more frustrating is that, I talked about making sure you're getting what's in there, with the quality control testing, but another side of quality control is also making sure you're not getting the things you don't want in there. Heavy metals, adulterated substances. This happens all the time. Like a lot of these ingredients are spiked, like your top 20 herbs, like a lot of them are very cheap because they're spiked with actives, they're different plants. And that means it's an adulterated substance that's not listed on the label. And then you can have, banned substances in there like stimulants or pro-hormones or SARMs and some of these things that get manufactured at some of these facilities. So like that can be a problem too. And that's where you want the proper quality control. Another thing I would say is that honestly, like unless it's like a multivitamin, and kind of going back to clear mechanisms of action and full transparency, probably above like 5 ingredients, it starts getting like wonky to me. Like it's like, it starts getting shaky. Like if there's too many ingredients, that's a sign too.
Yeah.
It's just, you can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Trying to put too much in for not much actions. Yeah. One other point on that, magnesium stearate. What's your opinion?
Sorry, a little choked up there.
That bad?
not over magnesium stearate, but you know, I think that's kind of like the the your side, my side. The truth is, I don't think it's kind of like very similar to like sucralose, like where that gets demonized. I don't like sucralose. I'm not saying it's good, but is it as bad as they're saying? And then they talk about gut microbiome, but I think there's research coming out with like stevia, monk fruit, allulose, like all these ingredients might have a negative impact on the gut microbiome too, even though they're natural. And like that doesn't get talked about a lot. Like, so a lot of the data that you receive is often like with bias. And so it's like kind of going back to that clickbait thing and the sensationalism. Like there's kind of that sensationalism on both sides, like but it's meant to trigger you and inflame you and make you worry. And so I don't think it's terrible, but I don't think it's great. I think it's somewhere in between. I would say that you know, ideally you can avoid it, but I don't think I'm going to like freak out if it's in it. It just depends probably too, like how much. It's like a dose dependent thing too, like how many supplements are you taking? Like if you're taking 20 supplements, maybe that's a factor, you know, like if you're taking 1 pill a day, not really that big a deal. Like so there's a question there.
Yeah, I think dose dependent is good for a lot of different things as well. You know, obviously toxicology, you're looking at small amounts being not toxic to the body and then large amounts being highly toxic. So yeah, I totally.
And there's actually some degree, even if like toxicity is really the case, like that, there's some degree to where something could be like a hormetic stress at a certain dose.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
But it's, again, that goes back to dose dependency.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So what is the coolest thing that you've ever formulated? Your proudest moment of formulation? I should have prepared you for these questions, shouldn't I? I'll dive into more in a minute, but I just wanted to get all these out of the way so I can then let my free mind
go. There's a couple. There's 3 things that come to mind. Okay, so one was my first product I ever formulated getting out to the market. And it cost $22 in raw materials. And I will tell you, like, most people don't know that side of the business, but like when you sell the product for like 35 through a company like bodybuilding.com and it costs you 22, you're making like $1 or $2 on it. But I made it like this super superior formulation. I didn't really have a sense of, as it was my first product, like I didn't have a sense of profitability.
Yeah.
It was a really cool product and worked really well and people loved it. But because it was my first product, that was something I was really proud of, and it was super effective. And to see it on a website like bodybuilding.com, it was just exciting to me. It was like a proud, you know, moment.
Yeah.
The next one was when I was working at Dymatize as their formulator, just walking into GNC and seeing like 100 of my products on the shelf, like all these different proteins and pre-workouts, and you know, just like walking around the store and just seeing all these different products from this company and knowing that I flavored them, I formulated them, I worked on the quality control for them. So to like see it on the shelf, it's like I almost wanted to like grab the person behind the counter and like, hey, you know who I am? I'm the guy that formulated all this stuff. This is me. And then like what was really cool is like when I was with Dymatize, and we were working a lot with bodybuilding.com and GNC, and I won awards for certain products, like because they sold really well, or it was a really great flavor or whatever, like winning those awards in the industry. You have to understand, like for me, like this was like a dream position, like that I didn't even know was even a thing, like to be in a position to be a formulator. It was just a crazy dream come true. And then the last one that comes to mind is with my first patented ingredient, tea cream, that's an energy ingredient that's in like 1,000 products now, like all these energy drinks and pre-workouts and fat burners. And we have like 20 studies between tea cream and dynamine. But like when that finally came out to market and I was seeing that in products, and to have my own branded patented ingredient with studies was really cool. So those are like 3 cool moments for me.
That is so
Very nerdy.
I can get that though. Like that would be something, when you're really jealous of someone, not jealous, but you're like, oh my goodness, that would be so cool. You know, that's your dream, your passion. For me, I'm like, oh, that would be so cool.
Well, we can make it happen with you. I can help you get a formula out there, get a product out there. Let's do it.
Oh, you've made my day.
So any of the listeners listening right now, let her know if you want to supplement and work on it together. If you guys support it enough, we'll get it made.
Oh, wow. All right, you've made my day. Now I'm speechless. You stumped me there for a second. Hold on.
Well, let me ask you a question. What would that formula be?
You know what? It would
first
probably,
one right out of the gate. What would it be? What's your dream supplement?
What's my dream supplement? My dream supplement would be something that really looks after base mitochondrial health. I'm really passionate about mitochondria.
That's my most passionate topic right there too.
Yeah, and I was going to dive into mitochondria in a minute with you. But what obviously with Home Hope and Dr. Ted at Chicoso and where I work there, when I first found out about his whole pillars and doing his courses and then now being a part of the organization, it was like I'd struck gold. It just, a light went off in my head. I'm like, wow, this is what I've been trying to achieve my whole career so far, and now it's just laid out perfectly. So for me, base health, I call it in clinic here for my clients, really getting those base cells working really good, and that is the mitochondria for me. So it would be something that would increase that or give that to people. And I don't know exactly those ingredients yet, because I'm sure there's lots more.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
We can talk about them right now. We can start constructing your supplement right now. We can talk about mitochondria.
Now you've twisted it to where I didn't think it was going to go.
No, let's talk about mitochondria.
So yeah, let's talk about mitochondria. So you are very passionate about that. Your top tips, the key to health, optimizing mitochondria, and then we'll move on to obviously your book, which is the energy formula, which leads in perfectly to that, and the different sections you've already spoken about. But let's dive into mitochondria. What's your experiences? Where do you look after that the most, and with clients, even in a clinical setting, and research behind that? So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I have been firm on this statement that mito is the next keto.
Oh yeah.
But I think mito is what everyone's going to be talking about. There's a state when you have when you don't have enough energy. It's called insufficient cellular energy states, ICE. And then in the brain, it's called brain energy gap. But it's the same idea, where there's a shortfall of energy, and that leads to a series of dysfunctions in the body with just think about, like, if you don't have the energy to run the body properly, the mitochondria, the cells that are running kind of like I was. They're pushing, and they're getting overwhelmed. They're not having time to have autophagy in the cell, mitophagy for the mitochondria. They can't recover. They don't have the rest and digest parasympathetic time for the cell, because we're pushing them so hard. So they're running into dysfunction. And then you get glycation, which is blood sugar damage. You get inflammation, you get oxidation, you get methylation errors. You get all these signs of pro-aging, where aging faster than your chronological age biologically. And you have a greater propensity towards all disease. When insulin's elevated, you run into metabolic syndrome. And like all of these things are happening, and glycation, which is blood sugar damage, like leads to advanced glycation end products, ages, like literally aging you. So like this is a state that like begets itself. So not having enough energy leads to overworked mitochondria that are dysfunctional and not having enough of them. And when you do hormetic stress, you can actually create more mitochondria, mitochondrial biogenesis, so that you have more of these powerhouses to make the energy currency for the body, adenosine triphosphate, ATP, and they're running more optimally. So it's just a downward spiral, if you will, of like when you don't have enough energy, that you run into more dysfunction, and dysfunction causes a lack of energy, because like when you're insulin resistant, you're not getting enough glucose into the cell to produce energy. And unless you're doing a ketogenic diet, then you're not getting ketones either. And you're not metabolically flexible. And so it's just a downward spiral from all directions. So that's something that you clearly want to avoid, and you want to improve your metabolic health, lower your blood sugar, lower chronically elevated insulin. And there's a number of ways to do that, and certainly take care of your mitochondria. And I can discuss those ingredients and concepts as well if you want.
Absolutely. There's a lot that comes into mitochondria, and that's where I say with my, in the clinic here, daily, people are walking in with mitochondrial insufficiency in some way, where, you know, it's just so many things are based on that. And then to tell clients, all right, so this impacts it, toxins impact it, nutrients impact it, but you need to get the nutrients in first. So your gut needs to be good. Then, you know, environmental, and then stress, and then, you know, and, you know, sleep, exercise. It's just this whole circle of things that impact it. And so they walk away going, whoa. So that in itself shows how important the mitochondria really are. Yeah, that's our fuel, that's our energy source, that's our base of living, really. It gives our body the energy to go. So yes, let's talk about all those different aspects.
Yeah, so elevating NAD levels is pretty critical to mitochondrial health. There's a ratio of NAD to NADH in the citric acid cycle, the Krebs cycle, sometimes called, or tricarboxylic acid cycle. It's all the same thing. Where you're that crank where you're producing ATP. So you want to find ways to increase NAD levels. So that can be IV NAD. That's probably the best way. That could be intranasal NAD, which is probably the second best way. And then there's some oral supplements that you can do, that like NMN is probably my favorite over, I really don't like Niagen. I think the data is pretty weak, the nicotinamide riboside.
Yeah, David Sinclair's done a lot for that, the NMN, hasn't he?
Yeah, David Sinclair and Rhonda Patrick and Peter Attia are all pretty supportive of NMN.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, I would look at some things that help on the electron transport chain side of the equation, like CoQ10. In the reduced form, ubiquinol is the most bioactive form. PQQ, which was actually considered for vitamin status at one point, which is a great cofactor, a great synergist with CoQ10.
Yeah, not many people know about the PQQ in Australia. It's probably, I think, I would say would be a little bit more well known in the US, UK.
Yeah, it's expensive too. It's not cheap. So taking 10 to 20 milligrams a day can be pricey. But again, this is like you're saying, I think this is base, you know, like when you're taking care of the mitochondria. And then from there, I would look at some things like reducing the other side of it, like getting inflammation under control, glycation and oxidation. So for me, those things would be several things. For glycation, I would look at a glucose disposal agent that's akin to metformin, but shown to be superior is berberine. And then I've patented a form called dihydroberberine that's about 5 to 10 times more bioavailable and lasts about twice as long in the plasma.
Got to
It's
get my
actually
hands on that. I've not tried it yet.
it's what berberine converts into in the gut is dihydroberberine. So it's just the more active form.
Mm.
And then on a inflammation front, I like two things. I like curcumin, but I've patented a form, tetrahydrocurcumin, that's again an active metabolite that solves some of the bioavailability issues.
Yeah.
And then I really like CBD. Like everyone's heard of CBD, cannabidiol, like a phytocannabinoid. But I don't think most people know about the endocannabinoid system and that it's actually a master controller system. Like we're not talking about it in the way it should be talked about, that it literally controls the body, like how you, the pain, the mood, the inflammation, like, and a lot of times people have deficiencies. And so these phytocannabinoids can fill in some of these gaps in the endocannabinoid system. So this is going to vary quite a bit in terms of bioindividuality, but
Mm.
it's something worth exploring
Yeah.
if you do have mood issues, if you do have depression, if you do have inflammation, etc.
Yeah.
And then from there, the oxidation side of the equation, and then also increasing NAD is one of my favorite things. Is a group of compounds called the polyphenols.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of my favorite ones that's been shown to be the most superior of all the polyphenols. They're all great. There's transresveratrol, pterostilbene, EGCG, quercetin. There's a bunch. But ficitin, which occurs in strawberries, has been shown to be the most superior of all of them at increasing NAD levels. So as we age, NAD drops pretty dramatically, our creation of it. And so finding ways to increase natural NAD is helpful. And then of course, taking something like NMN with it would be great.
Mm.
And then on the other side of the equation, there's something called NADase, the enzyme that breaks down NAD. It's also called CD38. And there's a polyphenol that affects that. Both quercetin affects that, but even more potent is something called apigenin that's found in parsley. And so it's two things. As we age, we make less NAD, like pretty dramatically.
Yeah.
And then we also, which affects cellular energy,
Mm.
and then we also more rapidly catabolize or break down that NAD faster.
Yeah.
So finding ways to increase production of NAD, like through ficitin,
Yeah.
finding ways to reduce the breakdown, like through apigenin,
Yeah.
that's going to be synergistic. And then finding ways to enhance the production even further of NAD through like NMN or IV NAD would be ideal. So those would be a series of compounds that I would look at to affect mitochondrial health. And then from there, I like also looking at brown adipose tissue, which is brown because it's so mitochondrial dense. It's super thermogenic. You only have, I don't know what this is in grams off the top of my head, but you only have about 6 to 7 ounces of about let's say a half pound, which is 230-ish grams or something like that on your body.
Yeah.
Right? Of like this brown adipose tissue, mostly around your clavicle, your collarbone, because that's your core. That's where thermogenesis is needed. Up until about 6, 7, 8 months when we're a baby, we lack the ability to shiver to create heat. So we rely on brown adipose tissue. And so this is a highly metabolically active tissue. And it could be one of the, like the holy grails of like how some people can like eat whatever they want, but like not put on weight because they're more thermogenic, because they have more active brown adipose tissue. And it's been shown that cold plunges or cold showers and creates cold thermogenesis. So it actually upregulates that brown adipose tissue, but so does grains of paradise, which is an African spice.
I was going to ask
So
you about that.
those two,
Is this grains of paradise?
yeah, so combining those two would be really effective at upregulating not only the activity of brown adipose tissue, but even the number of cells. So that would be a great way to burn fat, because it's been shown that just a 40 milligram dose burned over 100 calories a day in one dose. So we don't know if like 80 milligrams twice a day, what does that burn? As a non-stimulant, that's pretty amazing,
Yeah.
especially over time.
Yeah.
And then another one that I've really been having fun researching is an ingredient called beba. It's beta amino isobutyric acid, and it's known as an exercise mimetic. So there's ingredients that have been out there that are pharmacological, like ACAR GW50156, but this is something that occurs naturally in the body. It's a signal that your body releases from L-valine when you're breaking down the amino acids in the muscle pool,
Mm.
that tells the body there's intense exercise happening. And when beta is elevated, all the things that are associated with intense exercise are correlated to it. So like improved VO2 max, improved bone mineral density, improved muscle mass and strength, improve muscle innervation, improve fat mass reduction, and fatty acid utilization, and glycogen storage, and glucose utilization. All these things like are improved as a result of this intense exercise signal. So taking beta as a supplement is going to augment that signal. So
Yeah.
you're therefore going to get more out of every rep, out of every step, in shorter time. So that's like a really cool ingredient that I think, speaking of holy grails, that could be a holy grail for exercise.
Wow. So that's redefining pre-workout. Like that, just throw out your pre-workout. Let's get that in.
Let's go. Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's incredible. I was actually going to ask you about that because I'd seen you talk about it or heard you talk about it before, and that. So, do you have to use that alongside exercise, or people would get stung? I think they'd be like, "Oh, exercise in a formula. This would be nice," but it just augments, yeah. So you'd have to do the exercise on top.
In terms of like legal compliance, like you're supposed to say, like the FDA says, with good diet and exercise. So that's the way I frame it.
Yes.
But technically, it's an exercise mimetic, and technically, you could take this and just have that signal, and your body would think it's working out. So I'll just leave it like that.
Yeah, you leave it there. Yeah. Wow, that could definitely be a big player in the epidemics that we've got going on. Oof, okay, that's amazing. I'm excited. So this grains of paradise, though, just coming back to that, whereabouts
Yeah.
do you get that, and how do you take that?
Yeah. So one, all these things are mentioned in the book, and I even add the brand names and the doses and all that stuff. And
Perfect.
that's
Go and read the book, everyone. Yeah.
99 cents at energyformula.com. Pretty good deal. But it's under a trademark name of Caloraburn
Okay.
GP, so grains of paradise. And it's actually a spice that's used in food. Like it's been used in like Sam Adams beer, and it's been used in, it's literally like a kind of a tasty gingery pepper. I actually use it on my food. It's
Yeah.
tasty. Like, so it's you can take the supplement, and the supplement's standardized for an active called 6-paradol.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't hurt to actually use this in place of some pepper on your food as well. So yeah, look up grains of paradise.
Yeah.
It's a great spice.
Wow, you've got me excited. So now you're going to be costing me a lot of money because I'm going to be going out and buying all of these things that you've mentioned and having to try them on myself. So I think that's a bit of a segue into your book and the first experiment. So you have your 6 life-changing ingredients in your book, and one of them, well, the first one is experiment. So I'm a fellow experimenter. I have always been that way, and the people around me know that, including my students. They're like, "What has she got?" Always turning up with TED stuff, blue mouth, this on hanging off here, something on my ankle. But what's she turning up with today? So I think it's fantastic. We grow, we learn, it's exciting. We keep life fun and exciting by experimenting, and we're bettering ourselves at the same time. So I'll let you talk a bit more about all that.
Yeah, I love that. And again, that's a successful mind. Going back to what I was talking about before, it's really covered in 2 chapters, because what you're talking about, like I cover in growth with like the stoic mindset, the obstacles the way, that reframing mindset, which I just took a certification in NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and a big part of that is reframing.
Yeah.
But to your point, it also can be thought of as being a creative, being an experimenter, being an explorer, and granting yourself that grace to figure out what works for you and what doesn't. And that's life. So instead of like beating yourself up saying like, why did I do that? This sucks. I suck at this thing. It's none of that. Like explore, create, like experiment, try something, see if it works for you. It may or it may not.
Yeah.
Like think about, I mean, one thing like with studies is we tend to think like, well, if it's been shown to do this in studies, it will do that for me. And I will tell you, in even studies I funded, which are, by the way, 18 to 24-year-old white affluent males that are athletic, there's super or hyper responders and there's non-responders. And there's people in between, and there's a statistical average, and there's people that drop out. And so even in this really small, tight group, that, don't get me wrong, this data is very powerful and directional and helpful with human data. But it doesn't apply to 8 billion people necessarily. Like it's directional. You can try it, see if it works for you. And then if it doesn't, you know, you try one thing at a time, and then you move on. And then you try the next thing, and you don't try 10 things at once, and you don't expect that everything's going to work for you perfectly. That may not be the case. So that's the key to being an experimenter, and it really sets the tone for the book, because there's a lot of things in the book, like in nutrition, keto may or may not be the thing for you. I actually really recommend like keto as like kind of you know, a fifth step maybe of something you might try. Like first you need to get on whole food. And second, like, you know, also remove like some triggers, like allergenic triggers, inflammatory triggers, and then remove the sugar. And then, and remove that, certainly like, you know, finding ways to exercise or move your body. And then finding some ways to at least intermittent fast, like take a break, at least not snack. You know, like some of those things would be like foundational, and then explore keto. Because otherwise you might get into like what's called dirty or lazy keto. You might be overeating because you're still like, you know, abusing these ultra processed, high bliss point foods that trigger serotonin and dopamine in your brain that override satiety signals. So like if you don't break yourself of these ultra processed foods and the dessert dopamine reward process, and you're not moving your body, and you're still getting these inflammatory triggers, et cetera, like you're not going to be in a good place to understand or experiment with or know what elevated ketones feels like.
So true. So true. I didn't even know there was such thing as, I was speaking to someone the other day, a dirty fasting as well. I was like, wow, everything's dirty these days.
Yeah, you know, I actually try and stay away from that because that's really judgmental. Like I in my fasting guide, I cover that, you know, I just did a 90-hour fast, not like just a few weeks ago. And I've done like 72-hour fasts with my community. And those are super empowering. I think above autophagy, above elevated ketones and cognitive clarity and all that, is just your willpower to say, I can do this. And if I can do this, I can do anything.
Absolutely.
That's the most powerful part of fasting. But I do try and get away from it's like they call them sometimes the keto police or the fasting police that say, this is right, this is wrong. We should be lifting each other up. We should be saying like, to me, if some, like you see someone drinking a Coca-Cola and like you want to like chastise them, like maybe they went from 6 Coca-Colas a day to 1. Like, great job. Like, I'm proud of you. Like, and same with like fasting. If someone has, you know, bone broth, or, you know, does MCT oil and BCAAs or whatever in their fast, and it helps them go 12 hours longer, that's awesome. Like, cool. Like, you know, like I don't understand why, like, they don't have to do fasting like you do fasting. And like this whole, like, what breaks a fast thing is kind of nonsense too. I mean, it's not like an on off switch. It's not like it like puts you somehow all the way back to start. And also autophagy is elevated during exercise. Like it gets to be like nonsense. So like, honestly, people like don't know what they're talking about a lot of the time. And they get so militant and religious about this. And this should be the exact opposite. Like fasting should be about gaining clarity, putting your body in a parasympathetic state, relaxing, like healing your body, not abusing your body, hating your body, being upset with yourself, thinking you're doing it wrong, it's an exploration process, like going back to experimenting. You're
Yeah.
seeing like, do I want to do a dry fast or wet fast? Should I use like this electrolyte product, or can I use some bone broth here and there? Do I want to do a fat fast where I have just some fats here and there? Like, experiment with what works for you. Experiment with your body. This is about your health, your mindset, your life, your health span.
Yeah.
It's not about what someone else is telling you to do.
Absolutely. Amazing points, so important. When I see communities like, vegan communities, carnivore communities, any type of, not extreme, but any type of following, there's always within that those, oh, no, that you're doing it wrong, this and that. It's not on. We need to be supporting and lifting up people. There's no point in harming. When I was a bit younger and I was going through an extreme experimental stage, I went through all sorts of different diets. I went through raw, I went through vegan, I went through 21-day fasts, I went through everything. And then I sort of settled a little bit more on the vegan. However, the community then was so, oh, you ate a bit of honey. Oh, yeah, I did actually. Like, whoa. That's not what it's about. I'm not in it for that. Now I just eat, and I'm not in any box, and I just eat whatever I feel is balanced for me and suits me. But there is still so much of that out there, and I get clients in every day fighting with that. I'm vegan, but I actually want to eat eggs, but I feel like I'm getting chastised by the community. That's not on. It's not on. So that experimentation, that curiosity, that play, like we talked about before, I think is so important for people to understand that you shouldn't be judged by others, and if you are, then you're in the wrong group, or you should be speaking up and saying something, so then they realize their actions. But yeah, I think, and then that comes back to your tribe as well, right at the end there. Yeah. So nutrition, this next point that you have in your book, let's have a little bit of an exploration. We've already talked about you go through some of those diets. Is it something that you're looking at each in exploration in terms of what they give and what they provide people? So is this, a lot of people find that they get lost within the realm of all the research and with all the communities, the articles, the Google searches, all that sort of thing, and it's very confusing, this world. So just talk through a little bit more of that with me as well.
Yeah, I've been doing keto for 20 years, and it helped me get out of in pain and being inflamed and being in bed for 6 months with all these autoimmune issues. And
yeah.
I go through that in the book. And like keto, I go through like what strict keto would be and how to go through proper adaptation,
Yeah.
and then getting into other forms of keto, like that you can kind of move to over time after you've adapted, like cyclical and targeted ketogenic dieting. And then paleo, which is essentially whole food, but I talk about autoimmune protocol paleo, where you really remove all potential allergens or triggers, and then you slowly integrate them back in. And I have all the science covering this, how to execute on all these. There's Mediterranean diet, there is vegan, and then there's carnivore, which I even discussed too. And that can be, depending on where you fall with that on an ethical sense, it can be something that can be powerful in terms of healing the gut or in healing inflammation.
Yeah.
So that can be something that at least for a month or two could be a really good solution for someone. I think it's very hard to execute on for like a lifetime.
Yeah.
But can be something that can be helpful over a period of time.
Yeah. I find a lot of, the kind of, a lot of these diets are really therapeutic diets. We're using them for a purpose. And, it's hard to say, and I would hate myself while I was back in the vegan days, but the vegans I come through who are predominantly vegan, mitochondrially, they're not looking good. It's really not looking good. And it's hard to tell people that you really need a bit more of a balanced diet unless you're doing it really right, and it's hard to do right. So
it's hard.
It's really hard to do right. So I just wanted to put like a bit of a waiver in there where, I do eat meat now, I eat fish, I eat a whole balanced range, and I've never felt better. And it took me a while to get to that. Yeah.
And that's one thing I discuss in the book too, that like, I think the most important factor, like of, people argue or vegan, carnivore, or anything in between, you can be healthy on anything that's well executed. The most important through line or factor is that it's whole food. Like you could be eating, Coca-Cola and gummy bears on vegan, and you could be eating spam and hot dogs on carnivore, and neither one's going to be healthy. Like it's really about, like, if you're on carnivore, it's nose to tail, it's eating organ meat, it's grass fed and grass finished, it's, whatever. And then on vegan, like it's a well planned out diet that has enough high bioavailability protein, has the B12, the choline, etc., D3 potentially, like has all that stuff, and
Yeah,
it's well thought out.
absolutely. It's the quality for sure, for sure. All right, I think we've talked a little bit about exercise. I want to jump into routine with you because that
Mm-hmm.
I find fascinating in itself, and people in their own individual routines, how it makes them work. So let's just talk a little bit more about routine and even your routine, if you want to divulge.
Yeah. So, like, right out of the gate, like, let me tell you how, again, like going back to how successful people own their day.
Mm,
It's very easy to see how the day can get away from you in a routine. So, if your morning routine is this, roll out of bed, I didn't get much sleep, I stayed up watching Game of Thrones or a ball game, I got about 5.5 hours of sleep. My neurons are actually firing slower than they should. They don't have the energy they need. So I'm looking for quick energy, be it caffeine, be it sugar. So I'm thinking Red Bull, coffee, honey bun, donut, and I'm just exhausted. I get in the car, I have traffic, someone just cut me off. I'm stressed out because I don't have the presence of mind or energy. And then I'm feeling overwhelmed and I'm not going to make great decisions because of my exhaustion. I'm not going to do things that are good for me. I'm going to fall back on those bad decisions because that's just where my brain's at right now. I'm going into the trap of email. I'm looking at all the emails, going down that rabbit hole, getting even more stressed. I still need energy. I'm just thinking about lunch. I got to hang on to lunch so I can get pizza and Coca-Cola. Then I come back to work. I'm still exhausted. It's 3 o'clock. So now I want to get something from the vending machine. I want to get Coca-Cola and a Snickers bar. And then I get in my car, I go back into traffic, I'm exhausted. I get home, I lay down on the couch. I can't believe this day is such a hard day. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to lay here. I'm going to have a beer. I'm going to watch TV. Oh, Game of Thrones is on. That's my day.
did you
But
just
if you just give me 5 to 10 minutes in the morning where light slowly comes on, gets brighter, you can buy lamps that do this.
yeah.
The chimes slowly get louder and closer together. You don't wake up abruptly, you wake up calmly.
Mm-hmm.
Now you do some box breathing where it's 8 seconds in, 8 seconds hold, 8 seconds out, 8 seconds hold.
Mm,
You do this like 4 times and do some gratitude. I'm so thankful that I'm going to be on the Revital Health Show. I'm so thankful that I have a book coming out. I'm so thankful that I have my 15-year-old dog laying beside me. I'm so thankful that I have food, that I have heat, that I have electricity, that I have a job, that I have a car. I'm so thankful for all of these amazing things that I'm blessed with. Then go into affirmations. Today is going to be an amazing day. I love me. I am sexy. I am successful. I am happy. I am incredible. I'm going to do amazing things today. I'm going to impact people's lives. I'm going to meet new people. And it's going to be one of my best days ever. Then I get out of bed and I do some light stretching for a couple minutes. Then I have a full glass of water. And that's 5 to 10 minutes. And then when I get to work, instead of going down that rabbit hole of email, I'm doing that 2 hours of deep work. Now it's 10 a.m. I've hydrated, I've stretched, I've had affirmations, I've had gratitude, I've accomplished something huge. And now I'm about to eat something because I do a 16 and 8 intermittent fast. And my 8 hours are going to be during the daylight hours, according to Dr. Sachin Panda's data. So I'm going to have 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. as my window. And now I'm having something to eat. And I've also accomplished this amazing fast. I'm feeling clear cognitively. I feel energized because I did get my sleep, because I do have proper sleep hygiene. I do go to bed at the same time every night so that my body gets the rest and recovery that it needs. I do have a proper HRV, so I have a bigger allostatic load, more of that stress bucket that I can be more resilient. And I'm not doing that thing on the weekend that's called social jet lag, where I'm staying up 2, 3, 4 hours later. That's very similar to me traveling to a different country and then coming back.
Yeah.
And I'm also setting up a sleep fortress where that bedroom is about two things, mainly about sleep, but you know, there's another thing that happens there too. And that's cool. But like, it's not about, like, if you have a significant other, don't have arguments in the bedroom. Get up, leave your bedroom, have the argument, come back. Again, it's about anchors. What does that bedroom mean to you? You need to walk into that bedroom and it should be a place of solitude, a place of sleep, a place of relaxation. And so you need plants in that bedroom for, you know, oxygen, carbon dioxide exchange. You need a cool temperature so you can fall asleep in the right way and recover in the right way. You need LEDs blacked out, like on all your devices. You definitely don't need a TV in there or an iPad or a laptop or even your phone. Keep all that stuff out and keep the EMFs out. Keep the bedroom a place for sleep and relaxation and potentially sex. But that's it. So that's important. And just think about what I talked about. Doesn't involve money, is very simple, is 10 minutes in your morning and maybe 5 to 10 minutes prepping in the right way at night. And you have time for that, because that's radically going to change your day and how it feels.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Wow. That's incredible how painting that picture for people as well. And there is really no excuses. It's just making those micro habits stick every day and just putting those in place, and then they'll just become who you are. So, and you'll be better health, you'll be better energy, you'll be better showing up for people, mood, everything comes along with all of that. So yeah, that's absolutely amazing, Shawn. I love how you put that. So incredible. I don't know. From that, I want to sort of start to wrap up a little bit for you, so I'm not keeping you for too long. And I think that's an amazing way to sort of finish a big chunk of what we were talking about. But lastly, I know you're researching, you're talking about baobab before, but what is your most excited thing or latest discovery, new ingredient that you're either working on or just, you know, super pumped for? You know, passion is obviously, the book is absolutely amazing. You've got that coming out. Is there anything else that you're, for me, I like putting in context. I like looking at certain things. Like I get really excited about something. Like methylene blue, or, you know, the blue carnitine that Dr. Ted's got coming out, or a new herb that's come out that I'm really excited about researching. So at the moment, what's sort of in your life in that regard?
Yeah, so I'm continuing to patent new ingredients, and I've got more things coming out. There's a muscle building peptide that's coming out that's more effective than leucine, which is the known trigger for muscle protein synthesis. I have so many. There's some that I just can't talk about. But
I know. I knew that would be. I'm like, come on.
To say I'm excited, like, about that. There's 2 ingredients coming out this year that will be game changers. Like even more than T-creen and dynamine. Like these are going to be really high impact. So
wow.
I'm in like exclusivity talks with some companies, and it's just, yeah, that's got me really excited, because again, you know, they're my babies, and then too, like they're really effective. We have studies on all of them. We're getting patents on all of them. So
wow,
it's exciting. It's super exciting, like to apply my creative brilliance and live in my purpose and my why, and then change lives doing it. Like that's amazing.
It doesn't get any better than that.
Exactly.
So cool, Shawn. Thank you so much for sharing what you've shared today. I am so grateful. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you and to connect. And thank you so much. I think I would love to have you back on the show and we could geek out even more, because we didn't get to geek out too much today, but I really wanted to get context for everyone, talk about your book, and to really learn about you and what, you know, drives your motivating forces. So next time I think will be a complete geek out session.
Let's do it. I mean, if some people that are listening like have questions, and we can answer those next time. I would love that.
Amazing. thank you again. And I really look forward to catching up in the near future, hopefully in person, once
Yes.
everything calms down a little bit. But yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on. I'll talk to you soon.
See you, Shawn.